Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Jen Jodwin. I'm an advanced holistic nutritionist. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself in a few minutes. But tonight we're here to really talk about fast food vegan eating and what that actually means, and helping you determine where you may be a fast food vegan and where you may not be, and helping you make the right choices on a daily basis so that you are supporting your body in the best way that you possibly can. From a diet that has been shown to provide so many amazing health benefits. Okay, so first of all, for those of you who don't know me, like I said, I'm an advanced holistic nutritionist. I have a very strong belief in the healing power of food, and that is because I live a vegan plant-based lifestyle, because I have battled hormone issues and imbalances for 17 years, and it's been one heck of a journey, okay? And I'm finally in a place where I am in control of my hormones. I manage my symptoms entirely without medication, just through the use of, good food, good nutrition, and lifestyle choices. So that journey is actually what brought me to vegan plant-based eating. And so that has really inspired me to help women take back control of their lives and their hormones, and just being more aware of how their food choices are really influencing how they feel and look on a daily basis. And it's not just, I think it's very common that we're all very tired all the time, but that's not normal. So really bringing you that opportunity to understand that food is fuel. And though we enjoy it, and though there are so many reasons why we choose different types of food to eat that are influenced by so many other things than just the thought, food really is fuel, and understanding that is going to help give you the control that you need to make the good choices. So I really focus on long-term lifestyle solutions that give you the basics of the information that you need to make in order to make educated decisions, as well as tips and solutions and suggestions of actually implementing these choices in your lifestyle. Now, for those of you who've not heard my talks before, you'll notice sometimes I lose my train of thought, or I actually fumble for some of my words. And the reason for that is my daughter's first language is French. She's 4 years old. I spend the majority of my day, waking moments, thinking and speaking in French, which happens to be my second language. And I do that so much that I'm actually finding that now I sometimes struggle to find my English words. So I call myself a bilingual in training, mother of one. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into this. Now, so vegan eating, okay? So this is, a quote taken by Dean Ornish, who's a medical doctor, and he says, "Eat predominantly fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and soy products. These foods are rich in good carbs, good fats, good proteins, and other protective substances. There are at least 100,000 substances in these foods that have powerful anti-cancer, anti-heart disease, and anti-aging properties." So you see here, it's a handful of soil. And just like soil feeds feeds the nutrients that our plants need to grow healthy and strong and fruitful, so do we from the food that we eat, okay? For those of you who don't know my actual story into transitioning to a vegan diet, the kind of the final decision and like the turning point for me, okay, was actually that I was breastfeeding my daughter. She was 4 months old. I grew up, let's backtrack a second here. I grew up on a farm, okay? I raised animals for consumption. Everything from rabbits to chickens, ducks, geese, pigs, goats, lambs, cows. I've raised them for consumption, either through meat or dairy, okay? And I raised them from birth and the breeding process right through to the finished presentation on my table. I won't go into the details on that, but I have had my hands in and dirty in the process, okay? And so I grew up with that. That was normal for me, and that was the lifestyle that I lived. And several years ago, I was sitting with my daughter. I was no longer living on my family farm, but I was breastfeeding my daughter. She was 4 months old, and my farm dog, actually my collie, who had moved with me from the farm to the city, was sitting on the floor staring at me. You know how dogs get those really weird moments where they just eyeball you for the longest time, and you're staring at them and they're staring at you, and you're wondering, what are you thinking about, right? In that moment, I actually looked down at my daughter, who also happened to be staring at me. So here I have this amazing dog whom I rescued at 5 weeks old, and then my 4-month-old daughter in my arms breastfeeding, staring at me, okay? And I started to imagine the relationship that my daughter is going to have with Lola, my dog, as my daughter grows up. And I realized, at some point, when she's 3 or 4 or 5, and she gets into that why stage, which actually happens to be right now. Okay, so she's 4. It's why, and you answer the question, and that question is followed with a why. I realized that at some point in the next couple of years, she's going to say to me, why do we eat the eggs from our chickens in the backyard? Why do we eat chickens? Why do we eat cows? Why do we eat pigs? But why do we not eat Lola? And I sat there for a moment trying to process this thought, and I remember trying to come up with an answer. I'm like, okay, I don't want to be caught off guard with this kind of question. This is a serious question. And so I really sat there trying to come up with an answer. And the harder I tried to rationalize it, the less sense it made to me. And in that moment, it was just very clear. I just couldn't justify it anymore. It just didn't make sense to me anymore. And that was the turning point for me. It was really a light switch. It was on and off. I could no longer justify my choices in eating animal-based products. And so from there, I actually transitioned into a vegan diet. From vegan diet, I actually transitioned to vegan plant-based, but that's a whole nother story, okay, for another day. Now, what is a vegan diet now that we've gotten here, okay? A vegan diet is a diet that is void of animal products. So there's no meat, there's no dairy, there's no eggs, there's no fish. There are no products that are created or contain animal-based products, okay? So really what it does contain are fruits and vegetables, proteins from plants, whole grains, and then healthy fat sources, okay? So fruits, on an average, we want to be aiming for 3 to 4 servings a day. Vegetables, you want to be eating a large variety, so lots of colors, including dark leafy greens, okay? And so this is where most of us struggle, okay? We should be aiming for optimal health benefits, regardless of the type of diet that you eat. We should be actually aiming for 4 to 7 servings of vegetables every day. Okay, then proteins, so plant-based proteins would be things that are such as beans, lentils, peas, pulses, tofu, tempeh. Those are all really clean sources and great sources of plant-based protein that would replace the meat-based alternatives or animal-based alternatives, okay? Now, we want to be aiming for 3 to 5 servings a day. And then whole grains. Now, whole grains is something that we, regardless of the type of diet we should be eating, this is the type of grain we should be eating, okay? It should not be the refined, processed grains that so many of us are used to, and I'm going to touch on that in a little bit. But whole grains, such as farro and quinoa, wild rice, sparrow, these are actually all spelt. These, if you are in the chat box here, you'll see that I did share my pantry list for vegan eating. Those whole grains are actually all listed in there. So those are really great sources of protein and carbohydrates that our bodies require for good optimal health, okay? Now, you want to eat a variety of them, so 3 to 5 servings a day. Now, the amount of whole grains that you're eating on a daily basis is really dependent on your specific body type, okay? So there isn't any one size fits all, but just finding the ratio that really works for you in terms of, weight management, insulin resistance, and just managing your blood sugar levels. It is different for everybody. So anywhere between 3 and 5 servings would be healthy. Goal for the day, okay? Now, the thing about plant-based proteins is that they don't contain a complete protein. So we have 9 essential amino acids that our body requires on a daily basis because we can't make them. That's why they are called essential. Now, beans, lentil, peas, pulses, tofu, tempeh, they contain the essential amino acids, but they don't contain them all in the same levels that we would require within our body. That's why throughout the day, it's so important that you eat a variety of different proteins rather than just one protein all day. But it's also important that you're pairing that protein with a whole grain when you eat it to help counteract and add and balance out that amino acid profile, okay? Now, when we are eating meat-based products, meat does contain all 9 essential amino acids, but that's because that is the muscle tissue of an animal who has already created the 9 essential amino acids just from the diet that they're eating, which is plants. Okay, so if we are doing the same thing and skipping that middleman or middle animal, we are as also allowing our body to create the 9 essential amino acids by just pairing our food appropriately to do so. Now, why do people choose a vegan diet? This is a question that I actually get asked a lot. Like people ask me why I'm vegan, and I explain my journey and that story I just shared with you, but they still keep it like, why though? What does it really mean to be vegan? And a lot of people wonder, well, aren't you going to be protein deficient? Aren't you going to be missing iron and calcium and all these things that, we need or are told that we need and that we get from an animal-based or a carnivorous, omnivorous diet, okay? But there are actually a lot of reasons why somebody would choose a vegan diet. So some of that comes down to the fact that a vegan diet is more environmentally friendly than an omnivorous diet, okay? So there's less carbon waste produced in plant-based foods, there's less water used, there's less land, and there's less resources. Right, so earlier I talked about how creating those 9 essential amino acids from food is what the animal does before we eat. So the animal eats the plants, creates the amino acids which are built in the muscle tissues, which are then processed into a steak or a chicken breast or something that we put on our plate. But that's a middleman. That animal is the middleman of those amino acids. And so if we are removing the middleman of that process, those are less resources being used to create those amino acids because we're going directly to the source, which is the plants, okay? But a vegan diet is also very affordable. So fruits, vegetables, grains, and vegan proteins like beans, lentils, pulses, tofu. These are all non-taxed items and they are fairly inexpensive, particularly if you are buying your produce in season, if you're buying your grains in bulk, and if you're buying your proteins as dried sources, okay? So your beans, your lentils, your pulses, if you're buying those dry rather than canned, you are going to save yourself a lot of money. Now, and of course, there's the amazing health benefits. So it's reducing your chance of diabetes, cardiovascular disease. It's helping balance hormones because we no longer have those concentrated hormone levels from eating or consuming animal-based products, which is also going to help us manage our weight and promotes a healthy gut. But it's, of course, also allowing us to be more connected to our food. So it allows us the opportunity to grow our own food. You don't need a large amount of space to grow good, clean, plant-based food. You can actually grow some on your windowsill. You can grow some in the corner of your house. If any of you have a tower garden, that is something that is going to help contribute to your plant-based eating, okay? If you don't have a tower garden, regardless of whether you are eating a vegan diet or an omnivorous diet or keto diet or whatever you're eating, having more vegetables in your life is not a bad thing. So the tower garden, of course, is something you could look into, which we'd be more than happy to talk to you about if you had questions about. But growing your food actually allows you to better understand the connection between food, nature, and humans. You really start to appreciate the process of growing food and the resources used in growing food and the resources wasted in the process of growing food, such as food being picked at unideal or non-optimal, not ripe conditions, being transported thousands of miles to make it to a factory where it's sorted, continues to ripen, then it's put into boxes and shipped to the grocery store where it's then put out to display. By the time you're getting it, it's finally ripe, but it hasn't had that opportunity to ripen on the vine and actually get all the nutrients that it's supposed to have. So unfortunately, when we are buying foods that are are coming from long distances or in our standard grocery stores, they don't contain as many nutrients and vitamins and minerals as they would as if you were growing your own food. And a plant-based diet allows you to do that. So you really start to appreciate that connection, okay? Then, of course, which was what brought me into it, the animal ethics around consuming animal-based products, okay? So reducing the impact on animal use, exploitation, and mistreatment. Now, I'm not going to go far into that topic because I know that it's a very sensitive topic for some people. So I'm just going to leave that there. If you have more questions about that, I'm sure there are people on this call tonight who would be willing to discuss their journey on that process. But I'm just going to leave that there for now. Now, what is a fast food vegan diet, right? This is what we're here to talk about tonight. So a fast food vegan diet is really where we are eating foods that don't fall into those last 5 categories that I talked about, that they're not vegetables, they're not fruit, they're not whole grains, they're not healthy fats such as avocados, and they are not proteins. So what are they? Well, it's these convenience items such as vegan mayo, vegan sauce, vegan cheese, vegan deli meat, okay? And even vegan burgers and hot dogs. Those all fall into like both convenience and restaurants because we're finding those everywhere we go now. Almost every fast food chain now has a plant-based option. Then, of course, we look at treats, okay? So Oreos, donuts, cookies, cakes, ice cream chips. There are donut shops popping up everywhere that are spouting, vegan plant-based options, which is amazing, but it is a fast food vegan option, okay? Then we fall into this other category of refined grains, such as our pastas, our breads, buns, donuts, bagels. These are all things, these refined grains are actually a concern for every diet, okay? Not just a vegan diet, but unfortunately what happens for people when they're transitioning into a vegan diet, as they are learning how to make it easy, make it convenient, learning the new skills required, learning the new concepts of how food fuels them, and learning to adjust and cook and change their recipes for vegan eating. What happens is in this stage, this is where you are most likely to have nutrient deficiencies. Okay, this is the stage where we're most likely to lack protein, be low in iron, low in B12, have low energy. Maybe your hair might start falling out, your skin might start to sink, you might start to have, shallow looking skin, you might start to look aged. Okay, now these are not normal responses to a vegan diet. This is when our body actually does have a nutritional deficiency. And because what's happening as you transition, you are missing parts of your diet, okay? Because you're still learning the ropes. This is all new. This would be the same as if you were, leaving home for the first time, being thrown into college with no prior experience about how to make food, how to shop, how to eat, right? Where food fuel comes from. So this would be the same experience. Now, what we do, what many of us tend to do in that process is we actually eat more carbohydrates than is healthy, okay? And that's because our body feels hungry. It feels nutritionally starved. And when our body feels nutritionally starved, it craves refined and simple carbohydrates. And that's where we're going to run into the pastas and breads. And so you can be avoiding the convenience items and the treats and the restaurant options on a regular basis. But if most of your meals look like plate of pasta with sauce and vegetables, there is still a junk food, fast food component of your meal, and that's that pasta, okay? So unless you are using a whole grain pasta or a whole grain, you are running into that fast food, junk food, vegan lifestyle where you are going to continue the process of nutrient deficiency. Now, what's happening when we're eating these types of convenience foods is the exact same thing as what's happening when we eat the convenience foods when we're not eating vegan, right? So just backtracking here, the Oreos, the donuts, the cookies, the cakes. I mean, you look on the label and you see there's no milk, there's no eggs, and there's no meat. And so you think, great, that's vegan, I can eat it. And unfortunately, because vegan and plant-based is becoming so popular, which is great, it's also being used as a marketing ploy. Okay, and so companies are starting to label their foods vegan, plant-based, right on the label, right in the front of the label, right? And that's all we really look at when we're in the grocery store is the front of the label. We look at what it is, whether it passes our, our dietary choices, and then we throw it in the cart. Right, and so this is being used to continue and perpetuate that cycle of continuing to buy and use those types of products. But just as if you were eating an omnivorous diet, the Oreos, the donuts, the cookies, the cakes, the ice cream, the chips, the French fries, the pizzas, the sausages, all of that is still causing the same effects because it's not real food. It's not real fuel. And so it's increasing our blood pressure, and our obesity rates are going up. Diabetes is an issue, cancers even, and malnutrition and deficiencies. Okay, your body is nutritionally starved. And so when we're using these fast food convenience items, we are allowing ourselves to miss out on the opportunity to put really good food into our body. Now, can the convenience items like the deli meats and the plant-based burgers, can we eat them? Yeah, of course we can, just like we can if we were eating an omnivorous diet. Would I tell you to eat it every day? No. Is it something we could eat maybe once a week as a nice treat, or when you're really short on time and you really need something to just get you through? Yeah, okay. But it shouldn't be something that is all the time and consistently showing up in your diet, okay? Because you're going to end up with the exact same health issues as if you were not eating a vegan diet. And eating a vegan diet really is a great way to not only reduce our symptoms of these types of illnesses and diseases, but in some cases, it can even reverse them. Okay, so that's really, really, really big. So why counteract that by eating the fast food, junky food? So how do you know your vegan diet is healthy? Well, this right here is a vegan plate created by a couple of dietitians, and it shows you specifically the ratio of what your plate should look like when you're eating, okay? So of course, we're not always gonna eat all that much food at each sitting, but it gives you an idea of what your ratio of food looks like on a daily basis. So your fruit and your vegetables is always half of your daily consumption, okay? Now your fruit is actually gonna be a little bit less consumption than your vegetable consumption. And then your legumes and your grains are roughly equal portions, and you've got a little bit of healthy fats in there. Now this one is really, really great because it also shows you those foods from each category that are really high in calcium, which is very important in a vegan diet to be aware of. So oranges and figs, dark leafy greens, soy milk, which has been fortified, black beans, like black turtle beans, calcium set tofu, almonds, and then enriched whole grains is another option of getting extra calcium, okay? Now, is it impossible to get all your calcium intake in a day? No, but you do have to be intentional about it. The more that you learn about how your food affects you and where your nutrients are coming from, the easier it's going to be to incorporate all of this on a daily basis. And then, of course, some things to consider would be vitamin B12 to supplement, unless you are buying fortified foods. One of my favorite is nutritional yeast. That is a cheesy flavor, flaky powder that you can put onto almost anything that you want to have a cheesy flavor. But many of them nowadays are actually fortified with a vegan B12 source. So even just, I think it's like 2 or 3 tablespoons of that a day has your full vitamin B12 requirements. And then vitamin D, if you are not drinking fortified milks or orange juice, to ensure that you're getting a good source of that, okay? So here are a couple of tips for you for eating out successfully and healthily, okay? So number one, research. Ask for recommendations from your friends, on your Facebook profile, in buy and sell groups. Check restaurant websites. Okay, a lot of them sometimes have their menu posted on their website, or you'll be able to see that they have options available. They may just list, vegan friendly options. So do your research, then call ahead. If you know the restaurant you're going to ahead of time, call them and just ask if they have about their options. Find out if they have plant-based options, and if they don't, consider choosing another option. Okay, but say you get there and you're looking through the menu and you don't see what you're looking for, you don't see a plant-based option, ask the server, okay? Or maybe you do see it, but it's like on something that you wouldn't normally eat. So for me specifically, I don't like burgers. I've never liked burgers. And everywhere I go has a plant-based burger, but I'd never eat a burger. I don't like it in the bun. I don't like all the toppings. That's just not me. But there are many times I go out and I'll ask my server, can I have this delicious, it's like they'll make like these amazing salads, and I'll say, can you just put the burger patty on top for me, right? And then I know I'm getting a little bit of protein with my salad, and it's not any extra work for the restaurant to do that. Okay, so don't be afraid to ask the server or even the chef if they have meals that can actually have a plant-based option. Many times I'll go and I find a place that, a meal comes with, say, chicken, and I'll say, would you mind swapping that out for your plant-based option, because I'm vegan, so it would mean a lot to me. And they do it no problem, and they don't charge me extra, and it's not any extra work. So don't be afraid to ask. Okay, but another thing too you can do, you can actually consider foods and restaurants who naturally have a vegan or vegetarian base of food. Okay, so Mexican, Asian, Indian style foods are naturally have a lot of vegan and vegetarian options. Okay, so for example, Mexican, it's all rice and beans, right? Indian is a lot of lentils and rice. So these are really great options, because you're not looking for a basic alternative. The first choice in your menu is already vegan and a healthy source, because it's beans and not some research lab created version of a plant-based burger that's supposed to bleed when you cut it open and taste and smell and look like real burgers. Okay, so which of course are loaded with chemicals and fillers and all kinds of additives that are going to counteract all the good that you're doing by eating a vegan diet. Okay, so consider ethnic food, where you're actually going to have the opportunity to have a vegan as a first choice instead of as an alternative. You can also load up. Okay, so if you know that you're going out for dinner later on in the day, just eat your day's worth of protein before you go out, right? That's a super easy way so that you don't have to worry about it. It means you can have a simple meal when you go out and not feel like you have to choose something maybe unhealthy or less than ideal, so that you can meet your protein requirements for the day. Avoid the fried foods. Okay, they're no different than a non-vegan fried option. So the fried burgers and even like the fried poutines, like these are, they're a really great treat, but just as if you were eating a non-vegan diet, that is what it is. It's a treat. It's not something you should be doing on a regular basis. So veggies. Opt for a meal that's high in vegetables and clean carbohydrates, right? So clean carbohydrates would be mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, roasted vegetables, whole grain pasta, or even quinoa. So opting for these types of meals is going to help you avoid making poorer choices in your protein options, and you'll also you won't even miss it, because your meal will be so filling and so satisfying. You won't miss that protein from the meal if you opted not to have it. Okay. And then if you are out and about and you're getting, a little vegan dessert of some kind, eat it in a small portion, okay? And eat it only after you have actually filled your body with good food choices. So don't order a small dinner because you're going to order dessert. Order your dinner, eat as much of your dinner as you actually can until you feel full, and then just have a couple of bites of dessert. That's going to help you reduce the amount of, unhealthy sugars that have been added to these desserts. So one thing I didn't touch on about, you know, like our snack options and our treats and our convenience items is that in order to replace you know, the milk and the eggs and the different animal-based products that we would normally find in, say, ice cream, okay? These foods, these convenience foods and these treats and these desserts, they actually have much higher levels of added saturated oils, trans fats, sugars, and salts, okay? And so these four additives, in order to boost the flavor and make it an enjoyable product, are really counteracting our health objectives and our good health. And so, you know, like, it's just as important when you're eating vegan desserts that you are doing it in small portions and in good moderation, the same way that we would as if it was non-vegan and still a treat, okay? Now, what about when we're shopping? Because here's how I live my life, okay? If it's not in my house, I'm not going to eat it. So it really starts with you going to the grocery store, okay? So avoid the convenience items. Avoid the foods that are processed in the same way they would be avoided if they were not plant-based. Aim for real food. Choose whole food, real food in its most natural state. So as close to nature as possible. And eat the rainbow. So focus on adding more good to your diet rather than the concept of restrictions in your choices. So especially when you're transitioning to a vegan diet, it can really feel restrictive because you're thinking, oh my God, like, there's dairy in everything, there's cheese in everything, there's eggs in everything. And it can feel restrictive, like, especially as you're really starting to learn the boundaries of it. And so really what you want to do is you want to focus on adding more good to your diet rather than focusing on the restrictions, because that's really going to help you ease that transition and have a good positive relationship with your food, okay? A couple more tips is to read the labels. Check that the ingredients are simple, unrefined, and that there are just a few, okay? So 5 and under is generally acceptable. Anything more than 5 or anything that you can't pronounce, leave it on the shelf. Okay, read the nutrition facts. Is it low in sugars, saturated in trans fats, salts? If it's high in those, I would say leave them on the shelf. Does it contain protein, iron, and calcium? And in what levels? Is one serving going to provide you with a moderate amount of protein, iron, and calcium? So I would say a moderate amount of protein and an acceptable amount of protein would be anything with 8 grams or more. In terms of iron, you want something that has 15+%, okay, of your daily requirements. So same with calcium, or even, yeah, so iron and calcium, those are two very important ones. So making sure that you have, you know, more than 15% on that nutritional fact label to ensure that you're getting a good quality source and enough that your body is absorbing it, and that you're not wasting that opportunity by eating something that's maybe less than ideal. It's not going to support your body the way it needs to, okay? Then lastly, when you're going shopping, go with a list. Like, seriously, make a list and stick to it. And this is easier to do if you eat before you go shopping. If you go shopping when you are hungry, you are going to make the worst food decisions. It is the worst time you can go shopping, okay? For example, this past weekend, my husband and I ended up having a really late dinner. We were supposed to go out to dinner. My daughter was supposed to have a sleepover. She called us, asked her to pick her up. We went to go pick her up. It was about 7:30 by the time we finally got back here, settled down, and I actually ended up sending my husband out to go get us some supper. And what he was supposed to come back with was about $20 worth of food, and he came back with $100 worth of vegan junk. Like, literally, like 3 vegan pizzas, 2 or 3 vegan what do you even call those, like dinner meals, yeah. There's 2 tubs of vegan ice cream in my freezer, which I don't eat any of that stuff, okay? And there's all kinds of other things. So do not go when you are hungry. You're going to blow your budget. You're going to blow your goals way off track, and you're not going to come home with food that's any good for you, okay? My husband is a perfect example of that. And when he was gone for so long at the grocery store, I realized I had made the mistake of sending him to do the groceries while he was hungry instead of me. I have a little bit more self-control. All right, now here are a couple of easy ways to actually add more good to your diet. And it really does start with some simple changes, okay? You can look at adding Juice Plus to your diet. It's a whole food concentrated fruit and veggies in the convenience of a capsule or a yummy gummy, okay? You can look at adding complete powder, which is a clean protein powder to your diet that serves as a convenience item that you need in your life as a vegan, okay? And you can also look at joining the Shred 10 so you can jumpstart your health by being a part of a community that actually supports our health journeys. And there are so many vegans, people eating a vegan diet, people transitioning to a vegan diet in the Shred 10. It's so great. So it really gives you the opportunity to feel that community and have some support in your transition and understanding what and how food is fuel, okay? Now, for those of you who don't know, this is what Juice Plus is, okay? This is what's in Juice Plus. It's literally concentrated whole food, plant-based nutrition of more than 30 fruits, vegetables, berries, and grains, okay? Then, of course, there's the vegan omega, which I cannot not mention in this because it's a vegan product, okay? Now, actually, all of these capsules or gummies are vegan. But the biggest thing about these, there's a couple of things, okay? They are vine ripened. So remember earlier I was talking about how, not having vine ripened fruits and vegetables actually diminishes the vitamin and nutrient content within them. These are vine ripened, and they're also scientifically shown to positively impact our body at a cellular level. Now, because it's food, it's going to affect everybody differently. And so that's internal support is great for anybody on any diet, because let's face it, are you eating 4 to 7 fruits and vegetables, or 4 to 7 servings of vegetables every day? Probably not. Are you eating 3 to 4 servings of fruit every day? Probably not. It's really hard to attain that level of food and fuel and nutrition on a daily basis. This makes it easy. Here's that protein powder I was talking about. Okay, this is really, really great. It is a clean protein source. It is soy-based, but it is gluten and dairy-free, vegan, and non-GMO, which is so important when you're looking at soy products. And it has a powerful prebiotic fiber content, which means that it is helping your body support and grow probiotics in your gut. So you're going to have a healthy gut. But the best thing about this is that it is not a junky product, okay? It doesn't have weird ingredients in it. It has a large ingredient list, but that's because it is loaded with fruits, vegetables, grains, and really great protein, okay? There is a very low sugar content in this, meaning that this is even a product that is safe for people with diabetes, insulin resistance, women with PCOS or endometriosis, or any form of balance, because it's not going to interfere with your blood sugar levels, okay? And it's super versatile. Now, I think I've probably kind of indicated to you all tonight that I may possibly have pretty high standards in my food, okay? And I definitely do. So I personally don't eat a lot of convenience items. I don't buy the vegan products. I literally do eat food in its real whole food source: fruits, vegetables, whole grains, proteins, and healthy fats, okay? This is one of the very few products that passes my rigid standards for clean food, okay? So this happens to be my convenience item, okay? This is my treat. And because it's so versatile, like it's not just a protein powder for shakes, okay? You can literally put this into pudding. You can make pancakes. I make brownies. You can make, oh my gosh, what else do I make with it? Oh my gosh, there's literally a whole recipe book on how to use this, and I'm always finding new ways to make it, okay? Like little energy balls, so great. And I love that I can send it to school with my daughter because it's actually safe for children and for breastfeeding and pregnant moms. So a really great option for people looking for that clean convenience option, okay? Now, the Shred 10 lifestyle is really simple. It's really just about looking at making small changes in your diet, in your lifestyle, and creating healthy habits rather than restrictions. So, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people transitioning or already on a vegan diet, they feel like they're living with restrictions instead of focusing on the healthy habits that they're building by changing their diet. Okay, so eat more whole foods, sleep more, stress less, drink more water, exercise more, and these simple changes can affect your life in a positive way. So 3 simple steps to get started today would be to connect with your friend who invited you here tonight, to choose your Shred package to support your body at a cellular level with good whole food plant-based nutrition, and then change your life. Look at some of these results from people. They are craving more fruits and vegetables. It actually, fun fact, only takes, I think it's 16 exposures to the same, or to changing your diet to actually start to crave it. So what does that mean? If there's a food that you don't like, if you continue to eat it 16 times, you will start to crave it. Your body actually craves good food, okay? Right now, when we are eating convenience items and processed items, these have been scientifically engineered to increase our chances of eating more of it than we should, to continue buying it, and to actually crave it, okay? So our bodies are really at a disadvantage because we're literally being scientifically, manipulated to buying these convenience items. So when you really stick to, eating more whole food, plant-based food, you will actually crave it, okay? So that also means you're going to have a healthier weight, you're going to have better recovery from your workout, improved sleep, increased energy, increased mental clarity, all these types of things, all these common results that you get from actually feeding your body good fuel, okay? So for those of you who don't know or you haven't seen it already, if you just head over to the chat box, you will see that I did add a free plant-based pantry staple list so that you will know exactly how to pack your pantry so that you have healthy food to make pretty much anything that your heart desires, okay? There are so many ways to eat plant-based foods and so many amazing ways. Now, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat box. I'm gonna head over there and get to answering them. I have a few minutes left here. Let's see here.